Good evening, El Segundo. We're going to start our El Segundo City Council regularly scheduled meeting. First time at 6 p.m., our new start time. And we've got Pastor Charles Brady. Are you here, Pastor? Oh, thank you, sir. He's going to lead us in the invocation or do the invocation for us. And then Mayor Pro Tem Persick will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. All please rise.
Just for the record, Mr. Mayor, I don't represent the whole Lutheran Church, just the one at 1611 East Sycamore. That's all. It's called St. John's. Easter Bowl Sunday, I was in St. Louis on business, and that meant that all my kids were going over to my house for Super Bowl party. But my wife got a call about 1:30 in the afternoon saying that, from my granddaughter, saying there has been a huge explosion down there in Yorba Linda. And an airplane, a twin-engine Cessna, had crashed right in a residential area, and just less than a block away from where my son lived. And because he's a sheriff's deputy, he immediately called his brother, who's also a sheriff's deputy, Orange County Sheriff. And they went over there. Nobody asked him to. Nobody called him to. It's just what California police officers do. So they went over there, and since my oldest son is a lieutenant, he was senior guy there. So he established a command post and got things organized. As fire department, paramedics, there were 5 people killed, and there was airplane debris all over the place. And so it was quite a scene. But officers came in from other agencies, from other cities, paramedics, ambulances, all kinds of people, hazmat people. And about a month later, the city council in Yorba Linda wanted to kind of honor all the first responders, and I was there in city council, and it was amazing how many first responders are in an emergency like that. The whole place was full of people who went out there and responded in a very bad situation. So I think it's just good for us to reflect for a moment that should a terrible emergency arise, we got a lot of people out there that are going to be right on the job and responding. But what made my boys happiest, for some reason, was that it wasn't just them that got recognized. It was the dispatchers. Now, the dispatchers are right there, and they do a terrific job, and in organizing emergency situations and just an ordinary flow of police work. So as I pray today for this community of El Segundo, I want to just thank God that we have so many people out there who are ready to respond, and to come in these situations that are, as in this case, very, very tragic and upsetting. All right, let's pray. Father in heaven, do thank you, Lord, for our communities. Our communities here in California are very well organized, and we have a number of people, lots of people, police officers, sheriff deputies, fire departments, and paramedics and ambulance drivers and hazmat people, all kinds of people who can be around and say thank you for all of that. Continue to keep us, Lord, safer by means of these good public servants. I ask your blessing on this council in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Please join me in the pledge.
Thank you, Pastor Brady. Thanks for sharing. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right. We are going to go right into presentations. So first up, we have some exciting news that Chief Chris Donovan is going to share. We've got the introduction of Battalion Chief Dina Lee. So I'll turn it over to you, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council, and the community. It is with my great honor that I'm able to introduce to you Battalion Chief Dina Lee, a 16-year veteran joining the El Segundo Fire Department as a firefighter in 2003. She immediately began to study hard, work hard, learn all aspects of the job, and take quite a bit of classes, which propelled her to a promotion to fire captain in 2007. As a fire captain, her staff assignments were many. Those that were most instrumental, she was a platoon training officer. She was in charge of safety equipment for the department, But I think that her proudest accomplishment is the fact that she was one of the original members of a specialized team called the Rapid Extraction Module Support, or REMS team. This is a specially designed unit deployed in major incidences to provide support to firefighters who become ill or injured in remote locations such as brush fires. Her technical rescue skills played a major role in the success of that team. In addition to her work experience, Battalion Chief Lee has obtained an AS degree in fire science from Long Beach City College, a bachelor's degree in fire administration from Columbia Southern University, and a myriad of fire officer certifications through the State Fire Marshal's Office. Chief Lee is also a state certified fire instructor and has taught at the El Camino College for the last 10 years. She has completed the prerequisite coursework to become a strike team leader for brush fire responses and looks forward to the day in the near future where she'll be able to lead a team to battle a large-scale brush fire. Battalion Chief Lee also volunteers with the Women's Fire Alliance, a specialized group of fire professionals advocating for women in the fire service. And she's one of a handful of participants in the Girls Fire Camp, an organization for young women aged 14 to 19. She is currently mentoring a high school student now who is interning with the El Segundo Fire Department, and always makes time for station visits with young women who are interested in a career in the fire service. Now, most notably, and what's most exciting to me, is Chief Lee is the first female chief officer to be promoted in the entire South Bay, a promotion that she truly earned by coming out #1 following a very rigorous promotional exam. I'm proud to introduce to you Battalion Chief Dina Lee.
Chief, would it be okay if we did a photo op with the new battalion chief? But before we do, I just want to say thank you, Dean. On a personal note, some of you already know this, but my beloved 1995 4Runner was burning while my son Patrick was driving it shortly after leaving Campus El Segundo from a lacrosse game. And you and the firefighters came out, and I want to thank you, Jim, and others for being there. And although you didn't save the 4Runner, it was great to have you in Patrick's safe, so that's what's important. So thank you for that. And congratulations. It couldn't be more fitting with this group of women leaders here with AYSO All-Stars being in the audience as well. And it's a great accomplishment for you, and congrats. Let's do a photo op, shall we?
I just apologize because I hate to get this podium in the shot, but there's just no way around it. I'm going to try to do my best, guys, but I detest this podium. I got to tell you. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, and one more. And one more, please. Oh, I had a blink. That was you, sir? Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, next up we have a proclamation for National Public Works Week. And Councilman Pimentel.
Whereas public works services are central to the health, safety, and general well-being of our citizens' everyday lives. And whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and facilities such as streets and highways, water utilities, sewers, storm drains, public buildings, and solid waste collection. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these systems and facilities, as well as their planning, design, construction, and maintenance, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of dedicated public works professionals. And whereas the efficiency of said professionals, who are Public Works Department, are materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work that they perform. Now, therefore, the mayor and members of the City Council do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th to 25th, 2019 as National Public Works Week in the City of El Segundo, and call upon the citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions that public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Ken Berkman, Public Works Director, will receive the proclamation on behalf.
Well, thank you, Honorable Mayor, council members. It's always a pleasure to be here for Public Works Week, my third time in front of you. Public Works services are central to health, safety, and general well-being of our citizens' everyday lives. It's really a great way to summarize the importance of public works to society, and we all take great pride in providing these services to El Segundo. So there are large and easily visible impacts that Public Works has brought to the city this past year, like the automated trash collection, the aquatic center, and the facility condition assessments. But just as critical in the background, we're taking care of our water and sewer systems, the streets and sidewalks, and all the other things that are in the public right-of-way that we're responsible for. We work with all the departments to take care of their capital and maintenance needs, and we're proud partners with the police and fire departments as first responders. And it's a great invocation, but it's always interesting that Public Works, we're always in the background. And it really came to light this past year with the recent wildfires, and myself, I was evacuated. It's amazing to see how police and fire and Public Works personnel come together to make situations safe and take care of everybody. And in 2003, President Bush issued the Homeland Security Directive Number 5 that defined Public Works as a first responder. And we recently took the opportunity to join other departments across the country to raise awareness of that role with our new flags that are flying over the water plant and the city yard there. And we're real excited about that. It's part of a nationwide effort from American Public Works Association to raise awareness. But most importantly for Public Works Week, I'd like to thank everyone listening and watching to know how proud I am of our Public Works team here in El Segundo. They're an extremely hardworking group that goes out of their way to make sure the residents and businesses of our great city enjoy the highest quality of life that we can possibly deliver. So I thank you, Council, for this proclamation, and I assure you that I speak for all of us in Public Works when I say we are at your service 24/7. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berkman. All right, thank you, Mr. Berkman. Thank you, Councilman Pimentel. All right, next up we have a presentation, and I think Chief Bill Whalen is going to come up and speak to this one. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You'll remember a little over a month ago, the city of Hawthorne had what we describe in the business as a really bad day. And it started with an officer-involved shooting involving a man with a rifle. And that by any stretch is a tremendous drain on resources. But later in that day, they had a shooting in the lobby of their police station where tragically a woman was murdered. And so, as you know, no entity can afford to staff the number of personnel they need in order to combat multiple things like that and have that kind of surge capacity. And so, as was very aptly mentioned in the invocation today, we rely on each other very much for mutual aid. And so, on that day, the city of Hawthorne made a request, and we, along with probably half the cities in LA County, came to help them out. And so Chief Ishii from Hawthorne Police Department's with me, and he has graciously offered to come here this evening and present a little bit of an award here for our assistance that evening. So, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. I'm Mike Ishii, the Chief of Police for the City of Hawthorne. As Chief Whalen mentioned, I wanted to take a couple of minutes just to offer my appreciation and gratitude for the assistance that your police department and your fire department came to assist us in a very difficult day. As Chief Whalen mentioned, one of our officers was shot. We're fortunate that he's alive. He was shot by a rifle round right in the leg, and it happened at right on your border there at Rosecrans and Aviation. A quick story to tell, if you don't mind. I'll just take a couple minutes here. The officer that was shot, his wife is also an officer with us. And on that day, we were all at a run in the city of LA called Run to Remember, and we were there to honor the fallen officers. She had chosen to run the event, the marathon, or the 10K in full uniform. So as you can imagine, she was in full uniform with her radio, and as she was running, she heard the call go out of her husband being shot. She had a couple miles to go, and obviously, you can only imagine what was going through her mind. She finished the run, and we all went and responded to the location. And fortunately, he's okay. And just the dedication of the officers that they go out there every day to do this. This is just a small token of appreciation. The reason why I'm here, and I wanted to do this in a public setting here, especially in front of the council members, was really for you to understand the depth of the relationships that occur within all the police departments around here. We have years of relationships that we've had. I've known the two captains. They've known me since we were probably rookie officers. Your chief had reached out to me when I became chief and was one of the first to offer his hand. Chief Donovan has been a great supporter of our department. And so those relationships sets the tone for all of our agencies to work together. And because of the relationships that we have, especially in the South Bay with all the police departments, we're able to address difficult circumstances and be able to have the resources and the partnerships and the training together to be able to address that. I think the citizens or the residents of El Segundo, also Hawthorne, should take hopefully quite comfort knowing that their police departments are really working hard together so that we can address all of the issues that come up. So it's important for me to come here to do this here to recognize your police department, your chief, and to continue with the relationships and all the sacrifices and all the great things that the officers are doing on a daily basis that doesn't make the news. And it's very important. It's really humbling for me to be able to come here to do this, and I really appreciate your support for your police department and your fire department. So on behalf of the Hawthorne Police Department, we have this plaque that we wanted to present to to Chief Whalen to the El Segundo Police Department. It reads this. Presented to the El Segundo Police Department for the meritorious action performed on April 7th, 2019. On behalf of the Hawthorne Police Department, we would like to recognize the men and women of the El Segundo Police Department for their swift and immediate response to mutual aid during the critical events that unfolded in the city of Hawthorne. Your professionalism and expertise were unwavering in our time of need. So on behalf of the Hawthorne Police Department, thank you very much for allowing us to do this today in front of your council. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Ishii.
Good call. Perfect. Here we go. Gonna get a few shots here, and one more, and one more. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thanks again, Chief Ishii. Appreciate that. All right, next presentation. Last but not least, we have some certificates to hand out, and this is for the. It's kind of cool actually because raise your hand if you're involved with AYSO in the room. Chris, come on. A lot of us. This is really cool. So, all right, this team. This is the girls all-star team. Thank you, U12. For their outstanding accomplishments in qualifying for the AYSO Western States All-Stars Tournament in March 2019 and representing El Segundo with convincing tenacity to battle through the South Bay Tournament through rain and freezing temperatures and earning a berth in the All-Stars Tournament as the only El Segundo team to qualify. Was this in Riverside? Yeah, it's brutal out there, isn't it? That rain cuts right through you, doesn't it? Okay, anyway. All right, so I think what we'll do procedurally is I'll read the certificate. If you're here, we only have a few girls. Go ahead and step up. And then once we're done, as I read your name, just hold on 1 second. Sorry, girls. And then we'll hand out the certificates, and the council would love to do a photo op with you. Okay, Kennedy McAndrews, not here. All right, Natalie McAndrews, not here. Tess McAndrews, not here. Okay, well, McAndrews family is probably at a baseball game or something. Ashley Perkins, step right up. Don't be shy. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Scott. Lola Peterson. All right. Thank you. Chloe Thiel. No. Katie Baird. Thank you, Katie. Adriana Barrios. Awesome. And then we also have Yuvia Bernauer, Riley Dawson, Sage Guy, assistant coach Jacob Guy, head coach Joe Lococo, and Barry Gribben, who I don't think is here as regional commissioner. Let's do some photos. Oh, yeah, you're representing for AYSO. Thanks, Kelly.
Everybody. All right, fantastic, great job, baby. Okay, I gotta go back a little wee bit. Oh, here we go. And 1, 2, and 1, 2, and one more. Thank you. One more, guys. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Great job. Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Nichol,
Here.
Councilmember Pimentel,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Perstack,
Here.
Mayor Boyles.
Here. All right, procedurally, just a note, we are going to delay item 18 until a future date. SB 50 has been shelved, thankfully, and so we'll wait and see what happens from Sacramento there. Now is the time and place for public communications. Yes, sir, please. Yeah, please address the mic there. Thanks. If you could please state your name and address if you'd like.
Sure. Hi, I'm John Deering. I am a local resident, not of El Segundo, of Weisburn, your friendly neighbor next door. I'm here to talk to you and encourage you around the topic of micro-mobility, which is the slightly fancy name for dockless bikes and scooters. And before getting into it, I just want to stress that I'm speaking for myself and nobody else. And my inspiration for being here is really because of a change in my own personal commuting pattern. I work in downtown LA and just recently decided to give up my parking in my building and reinvest that money back into my family because is rather expensive. But my ability to do so is only made possible by the existence of alternatives to my commute. Any combination of the Metro line and the Commuter Express bus that serves the city. I think El Segundo is rather blessed in that it has 3 Metro stops in addition to a Commuter Express bus. And so I'm able to participate in public transit because I have these alternatives. And the micro-mobility really allows flexibility at a much broader scale. The ability to take a bike on demand and have it fulfill that first mile, last mile need. That's a very real thing. And so I'm able to get by just by doing about the mile or so walk to either any combination I have of the commuter bus or the Green Line station. But so all of this to say, I really would encourage the City Council to revisit the moratorium on the dockless shared micromobility providers. I'm rather familiar with where this started for the city and how it was basically a free-for-all give or take a year ago. And I think if you talk to any other city around that time, it was problematic. But I will say that things have dramatically changed. Cities such as Santa Monica, Culver City, even the city of Los Angeles have put in permitting programs where the scooter and bike providers play by the city's rules. They're incentivized to do so, obviously. There's a method for cost recovery for the permit, from the permit, so the city can ensure that it's not draining its own resources to do that. This is just a unique opportunity for, I think, El Segundo, given how you have a lot of robust transit that serves the city, both for residents and also commuters. There's a major business district here that is much closer to the transit stops, that I think really there's a latent demand for people such as myself that can afford to have 2 cars in the family, but understand and want to take advantage of the trade-offs, saving myself and my household some money while also taking 1 less car off the road. So I know I'm not exactly familiar with the moratorium, but I would encourage the council to look at what some of the other cities have done and to actually begin to implement a first mile, last mile solution with some pretty legitimate modes of transportation. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Deering. Okay, that will close public communications. Any council comments?
Mayor Boyles, can I
Yes, ma'am.
just, Don Brand? Here? Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, any council comments? Moving on. Item A, consideration of a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only.
So moved.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Item 1 is going to be deferred to a later date. They're not prepared yet. Moving right along. C2, consideration and possible June 18th. Yeah, we're continuing that to June 18th. My apologies. Do we need to vote on that, Mona?
Yes, why don't you continue the public hearing by motion?
Yeah.
Okay. Someone would like to make a motion to continue the public hearing to June 18th?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chris, did you have a comment? Okay, cool. 5-0, thank you. Item 2, consideration and possible action to approve the City of El Segundo Communications Plan. I think we have Barbara Voss presenting on this matter.
Good evening, Mayor Boyles, members of City Council. Joining me this evening is Kristen Bergevin. I introduced her previously. She is a contract employee with us. 50% of her time is spent on our website, and 50% of her time is spent helping me with communications. So she was a huge part of the development of this plan, and so I invited her to join me in presenting this evening. So the communications plan really came out of 4 or 5 months of research and planning. Initially, improved communications was identified as a strategic priority. In the first goal, enhance customer service and engagement, it was really the number one, where communications was really called out. But we think that a communications plan serves all 5 goals of the strategic plan. So first, we identified our vision, and I'll just read it. We wanted to determine overall what we were trying to accomplish before we got into the strategic objectives and the detail of the plan. So the vision is to support the city through communications that foster effective, proactive, and two-way communications with all key stakeholders, leading to improved trust, greater transparency, understanding, and engagement with residents, employees, and businesses. So we began the process in January with a communications audit. We met with all departments in the city, the department directors, as well as staff who were involved in aspects of communication, whether that be social media posting or preparing newsletters or doing updates to the website. And we just asked a series of questions about what are you doing with communications? What could you be doing better? In an ideal world, where would you go with communications? And our key findings are listed here. We think that all the departments were interested in standardized guidelines for internal and external communications. Around social media, there was some interest in training, how best to use social media, how to optimize engagement, some training on writing for the web, which is going to be incorporated into our website development process. And then also we shared the social media policy that council adopted, I believe, in December, and went through that and did a little overview there. Universally, the departments were comfortable with adherence to the social media policy. They wanted opportunities to share their stories, share the success, share with other employees here at the city, external with the residents. Sometimes, in some cases, it would be with businesses. So really looking for more opportunity to get the word out about what they're doing in their departments. Increase communications with residents and businesses just across the board. Develop an intranet. We have a shared drive currently, but we don't really have an intranet that's robust and accessible to all city staff. And we think that that would be, or one of the things that came out of the audit was that that would be something that would be very well received as a repository for all types of information that is shared across departments, so that a particular document isn't shared in 15 different places on our drives. And then departments, as you know, there's a lot of different branding within the city. So departments have their own logos, a lot of different social media sites. All of the departments would like to maintain their branding. So our goal here is to create an integrated city-wide branding that also brings in the rec park brand, the police brand, fire, what's already being done within the departments, but creating an umbrella where it's easily identifiable that this is the city of El Segundo, rec and park. This is the city of El Segundo, and fill in the blank with the department. So those are the key findings. And then Kristen will go through communication strategy.
Thank you. Oh, I'm going to move this up a little bit. Good evening, Mayor Boyles and council members. As Barbara just shared, she set up the situation analysis of where we are and the input that we got. So what we want to do is, this communications plan is our roadmap of where we want integrated communications to go. And these are a look at our strategic pillars. So very top line, boost. We want to maintain and enhance presence in our community with communication channels that reach multiple audiences. We want to reinforce and promote those key messages and city branding throughout all those channels and those opportunities, as well as integrate messaging, excuse me, across all departments. And of course, share the vision and initiatives of city departments and city council. So taking a look at our program goals, and these align with the city's strategic goals. Foster a greater understanding and trust of what the city is doing, the city's responsibilities, the events and benefits that are provided to residents and businesses. As Barbara mentioned, developing a unified and consistent brand identity. Oh, you're too kind. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Improve internal communications. Support the emergency communications. That's critical that everyone is aligned during those times of emergency. Continue to partner with media outlets, get them the information early and proactively, and then always gathering feedback. So through the initiatives that we'll start to outline, is if it's the website, through social, through surveys, through internal surveys, resident surveys, and of course Net Promoter as well.
Sorry. A lot of papers.
I have a lot of papers.
Yeah. Just wait till they all scatter. So from that visioning process, the strategic, developing a strategy, we came up with 10 key initiatives that comprise our communications plan. And they're listed all here. I'll go through them briefly one by one. So number one, we saw a need for enhanced stakeholder relationships. So those bullet points there represent different categories of communications, whether it be directly to the residents, media related, partnerships with our newspapers, local media, to the LA Business Journal, to the LA Times, to the Wall Street Journal. So developing and enhancing those media relationships. Mayor CEO roundtables, another example. Getting key executives from, and this is an economic development example, from our top employers, sitting down and having a meaningful discussion on a semi-regular basis. Aerospace, top 20 employers again, economic development groups, that's more about other economic development related activities like Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation, LAEDC, or the South Bay Cities Council of Governments has an economic development group. Working with elected officials, the offices of elected officials, from Senator Feinstein to our local electeds, and making sure that we have those open lines of communications with our elected officials. Marketing communications is looking at what opportunities we have to promote the city, utilizing the activities or the successes of our business community from a promotional perspective, like Beyond Meat and their IPO, and sharing in that celebration and getting the word out that yes, Beyond Meat has achieved this accomplishment, but they're here in El Segundo, and making that connection whenever possible. LA Air Force Base retention, there are quite a number of groups that are working towards base retention should that issue arise. And we just want to make sure that we're involved in those groups and collaborating with those groups, and we have the contacts so that we're ready to activate should anything come up related to the base. CCBs, our thought around that is looking at maybe a roundtable group of the chairs of the CCBs so that the CCBs are collaborating and they know what the others are doing. And I know everybody probably maybe doesn't look forward to another meeting, but something quarterly, not high frequency, but just to make sure that those connections are made so that we all, within the CCBs, they know what the others are doing and can identify opportunities. Law relations is an ongoing. Education partners is something that's come up. And again, all these cross different potential incidents where the communication would be necessary. But looking at, the superintendent, the principals, to the school teachers, to, what if something happens in the community and you're a teacher and you've got your children in your classroom? Do you know who to call? Do you know, do you have a relationship with the city at all to get information about what's going on with that? Proactive, timely, and consistent outreach to our community, and this is where I attempt to be clairvoyant, anticipate information needs before requested. But in seriousness, that's really about looking at agendas and looking at and listening to the department directors and looking at things that come up that might be controversial or difficult to understand or complex, and getting out in front of that and preparing those frequently asked questions or those data and fact sheets so that when the questions do start coming up, it's not an afterthought of, oh, somebody asked this, let's get it together and get that information out there. Highlighting successes, that goes across all departments and the community at large. Support messaging, again, I mentioned that, complex issues. And then and I've mentioned this a few times, we have a new Gov delivery platform, which is an enhanced communications tool that's part and parcel with our website. We've been using it. You've probably seen a few bulletins coming out here and there. But we think that using the Gov delivery system, we'll be able to get out quick bulletins on maybe just topics of interest that occur at any given moment, more frequent newsletters with maybe one, two, or three key issues that we think either the staff needs to know about or the external community needs to know about. It has the ability to create topic trees and organize lists by areas of interest, but at the same time, if something comes up and you want to talk to everyone you possibly can reach, you can click all the buttons. And it is integrated with social media as well, so you can say, I want this to be posted on the city's social media page, and I want this to be posted on the library's page as well, and you can click both of those, and there'll be controls in place about who has access to what to make sure that's all organized. And then Kristen has been very heavily involved in the website.
And a complete design, as you are aware, is underway to make it more user-friendly, timely, the go-to place for information. I know that was one of the visions of the group here. And one big component of it as well is to make the ease of reporting an issue streamlined process. So if there's a downed tree limb, or if it's graffiti, or if it's a bulky item, that residents will be able to do that with ease. And And then, as Barbara mentioned, the continued implementation of the new email system. I've been fortunate enough to be working in it and getting out a few bulletins. I'm going to grab this water again.
You put it on the shelf.
And the power of it is really, really fantastic. And it's something that we can get up and running before the new website is launched. We can get those lists being built. We do have an eCity news list, but as we're developing that topic tree, we can drill down and we can do proactive communications out to get more and more folks signed up for that so they're getting the information that they want. And then also the implementation, as Barbara mentioned, of a robust internet for employees. So that's another big part of the website development.
And I skipped ahead a little bit there. Emergency and crisis communications planning. I came before council maybe December of last year with a kind of a preliminary communications plan. The goal here is to have a manual, a policy document in place that explains the communications component of responding to anything from a nuisance to a full-fledged emergency. And integrated brand for the city. We'll have our...
It is underway. I think between the economic development website, the destination website, efforts by the police department and by Rex and Park, there is an evolution of the branding so far, and we want to continue that overall for the city to create a style guide and a consistent use of brand standards to make assets, you know, that staff needs to do a PowerPoint or to do a cover for a report, whatever it may be, business cards, a card to have on them so when staff is out or people are out in the community and residents or businesses have questions, there's a branded card that, you know, that they can provide to people that might not be able to. It would have phone numbers, you know, different ways to get in touch and to get information from the city. So just an overall continuing brand evolution. And then near and dear to my heart is the strengthening of media relations. So, you know, there's often times where different departments get media requests or interview requests. So just creating a media relations policy to keep everyone in the loop, to keep everyone informed. And then also continuing the proactive outreach and updates to media. And then working closely with the department directors to set an editorial calendar for news that they have that they want to be sharing, or issues or programs or initiatives or whatever it may be, or Public Works Week. You know, getting those into an overall calendar so we can get those into newsletters and starting getting those promoted and the word out there. And then also engaging and identifying influencers. Traditional journalists are influencers because they have to have a presence on social, but then we have some folks that are, you know, more just on social. So finding that balance and finding, you know, how to work with each of those to accomplish the communications goals that we have. And then hand in hand with that is enhancing social media. So sitting with the departments and doing workshops on what's the latest and greatest in social media. How do we research the best hashtags if we're on Instagram to get more engagement? To Facebook policies have changed, and you know, just keeping everybody up to date and up to speed on what's happening there. And then always looking for those new channels that people are engaging with. If we see a movement or we hear, you know, that we need to have a presence on a channel, it's about stepping back, creating this strategy and how we're going to approach it rather than just jumping on a channel. And then finally engaging with those influential outside channels that we might not have a presence in, but we know that we need to engage with, that, you know, do communicate and have a solid word throughout town. So.
Is your Coke can blocking it? Okay, there we go. So El Segundo TV. El Segundo TV is in the process of moving from Rec and Parks into the city manager's office under the communications umbrella. We've been working with the team at El Segundo TV over the last few months to take a look at just their whole schedule of programming, what they're currently working on, what kind of response they're getting from the community in terms of views and engagement with the different pieces of content that they put out. And we want to work with this plan to really evolve El Segundo TV and look at maybe some new opportunities, keep the programming that's working, but maybe enhance some of the programming. And then also a really big piece of that is everybody seems to be digesting content via video nowadays, not so much reading articles and longer forms of messaging. So we want to enhance our video production to use on social media and to use on our new website. So the content is available from anything from sharing department stories to key policy issues, having it explained in a video rather than just a written form. So there's a lot of opportunity with El Segundo TV, and we just look forward to working with them moving forward as we implement this plan. Internal communications, I really think that speaks to the employer of choice goal, and want to make sure that our city staff is aware of what's going on in the city, what are the key things they need to know about, so that if they're approached by a member of the public or at one of the counters and they ask about, oh, I heard this company moved in, or I heard this is going on in the city, they have that real-time information in a user-friendly, easy-to-share format, with the website also serving as that central point of information that they can refer people to. Will be reliable and trustworthy and timely. And then engagement, working with human resources on their various initiatives to increase engagement with employees. There's a communications component to that as well. And then last but not least, supporting city manager, mayor, and council priorities. Again, I know you're all asked to speak to the press at times, or appear at events, or do an interview for El Segundo TV, or do an interview for the Daily Breeze, or whatever the topic may be. We want to help to make sure that you're all prepared with the key points and data that you would need to conduct that interview, not feel that you're being taken off guard or not prepared, to get you really the data that you need to meet that objective. And then also speeches. If you're asked to speak at events, we help with preparing speeches and presentations and video content, and consistent messaging. What are the key points that we want to communicate about El Segundo? So that's all at your fingertips and ready to go. Oops. This is hard. Okay. There we go. We just wanted to top line the measures for success. Obviously, for each of the initiatives, we'll be putting together an action plan and timeline that goes along with those. So reaching those key milestone dates and deliverables. We'll also take a look when the website's up and running of our engagement and our metrics, an increase in our Net Promoter Score, citizen feedback, analytics in GovDelivery. We already have those right now for several of the communications that we've sent out. This is an extremely engaged community. As you know, the street sweeping communication had a 45% open rate for an email, which is fantastic. And we've seen high levels, again, for the other communications, and happy to share those metrics and report back on those. Looking at social media, the feedback that we're getting, but also the engagement metrics. Of course, looking at our media coverage, staff surveys, and then looking at the results from paid search and paid social metrics. And then very important are our new signups for Everbridge and Nixle. So next steps, we plan to come back during the budget process with staffing requirements, and then at that point, depending on the staffing level, we look at specific action plans and timelines, using Gantt charts if that's preferred, for each of the 10 initiatives, and really looking at what can be accomplished with the resources that are available, and putting together specific plans for each of those items. And so this evening, that really concludes the presentation. We're asking your feedback on the plan, and ultimately to approve our communications plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know a lot of work has gone into this. Thanks so much, Barbara. And I'll turn it over to the council for questions and comments.
I just want to commend you on doing this. It's you really encapsulate a lot of ideas, and I think this is going to help us move forward as a city. One of the things, as we talked about, we're looking at communication both from a daily basis as well as emergency basis, which is important. And we'll have the ability with this communication plan and some of the tools that we're going to put in place to already have announcements pre-scripted, so that at a push of the button in an emergency, we can push a button and they can go live. So I think one of the key things in this is that we're trying to be very proactive, so that our communication to the residents is not just in time, but it's before time. So thank you very much for this. I think it's been needed, and I think for us to move forward as a city and to be that city of choice, this is a great way to get there.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Chris?
I would concur and say that it's a notable gap for the city. And I would be aggressive on your next steps about marrying up your staffing to your implementation plan. And that whether that involves repurposing people we already have, contractors, or new hires to build it. There are at least 5 different plans in this. So 5, they all are communication, but they're all different kinds and for different audiences. Mm-hmm. So implementing those in any sort of concurrent fashion, because they're all probably equally important to different people and equally important to the city because we don't have them. I think that, for us selfishly, we like to see emergency response and ways to talk to the public. But we know in running the shop of City Hall that interdepartmental communications and ability to access things is just as important. So when you do all of those things, I would urge this to not look like a serial Gantt chart of when this person finishes this project, then they move over to do that project, but finding a way to develop those things and appropriately staff for it is something that I think that we would be very interested in looking at. Because again, this is, by my count, between 5.5 and 6 different big communication things that only share the word communication in terms of what they are. So,
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman Pimentel. Councilman Nickel? Or Dr. Brand? Yeah.
One of the slides used the term editorial calendar. What does that mean?
So, you want to take that?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So it's looking at the year ahead and month by month, starting with months, planning out what we know are temples for each of those months, be it Shred Day to open house at the fire station. Mm-hmm. So getting those temples in, but then also looking at it from a seasonal and a cyclical and plugging those in, and then looking at the overall, the plan for the city and seeing where we can plug in information as well. So we're aware, so we have a plan and we know where to plan out to get those communications ready for the time that they need to go out.
You have this available by email. Could you send me this plan as an email?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brand. Councilman Nickel.
I think to Carol and Chris's point, this is a very robust plan. I like to think sometimes us as policymakers, we have a wish list and we just kind of spout out a dream. And then staff comes back with, well, here's how we can actually bring your dream to life. And I use the term dream because I would love when you bring this back during budget time period that you can kind of say, with the tools I have currently and the budget I have currently, this is the type of communication I can provide to you from my department. If you would like your dream communication, this is what I'm going to need. Mm-hmm. But I would love to see what we have currently in staff-wise, budgetary-wise, like what can we accomplish? Because many times in a city, it's, can we take a baby step? Like, let's do one thing at a time. Let's take care of that. Let's tackle the next one, and grow. But yeah. Great work. Obviously it's robust. It's huge. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Nickel. I had a question to start off. What is the difference between the government delivery method that you mentioned and the website email SMS distribution system? One and the same or two different vehicles? Okay.
Yeah.
The branding, there was one point in there about departments want to control, but they're also open to branding uniformity. Help me understand what that means. Who is going to ultimately own that, and who will be the gatekeeper for the city in terms of communications?
So I would be the gatekeeper.
Okay.
But with that said, I would say that each department, may want to use a specific logo for the library or a specific logo for the fire department. But overall, we would agree upon how their social media pages are going to look. One of the topics in the social media policy was that the city's logo needed to be on each of the pages so that the pages are connected with the city. We're looking at, with the website, we have sub-sites, PD, fire, rec park, library, all have their own, and we have economic development and destination too. How to utilize the city seal and the treatment of the logo to be included in those sub-sites, but also allow for seamless integration of their unique brands.
So it sounds like we'll have policy guidelines in terms of how to use different vehicles to reach your audiences using different templates, but that the actual ability to execute that messaging will still reside at the department level. Is that right? In most cases, or?
The ability to execute.
Like, if I'm in the Rexham Park and I want to fire off message after message, am I doing that, or are you doing that?
No, it would be.
So if we don't have the answer yet, it's fine to come back before budgeting. But I think one thing that I've realized is we have a bunch of PIOs in the city, public information officers, and each department is somewhat siloed in terms of how they're communicating.
Yeah.
So I think it would be helpful to council to understand how that will change going forward. What will be different about this plan going forward in terms of who's going to be doing what, at least from my standpoint.
Yeah, I think that too comes from development of a style guide, where we talk about colors, logo usage, fonts, styles, what your business cards look like. But there will be conversations with each department about how best to collaborate and develop a unified, but I don't recommend just one logo for everything, no identity unique to the library or unique to Rec and Park, but I think there are opportunities to create an umbrella over all of that.
And where would those assets be stored? Or who's going to be the owner of those assets? So as far as the logos, because what happens is when you have multiple people owning multiple logos, as when you change something, then someone uses the wrong one, and so there needs to be a central repository for those logos and for those assets, and someone needs to own that.
Yes.
So I think what Drew is saying, we really need to. It's okay to have communication come from multi-facets, but there has to be strict guidelines on how that's executed, and policies put in place to ensure that there is no.
Yes. And that will come into play in the style guide. But I also think, the team of people in each department who are giving maybe 5-10% of their time to communications will be a critical component of the communications program. That we need those voices from each department to be feeding into the overall.
So will they do you envision them being dotted line to you then? Because they're... Anyway, think about that, because I'm very interested in how we're going to actually roll this out, the plan itself.
Yeah, I don't think we don't want to torture this, but I think that the point of this is that if one department wants to have a weenie roast, and their person wants to put that out, that's fine. But if we have multiple people asking about California's putative ban on different herbicides, right? We don't need Public Works saying one thing and Parks and Rec saying another, because they both use herbicides. We want to make sure that there is some sort of central messaging of here's how the city's approaching this. So there's a degree of finesse that goes to that is some kind of dotted line, and maybe it's a common sense or a reasonable man piece. You don't want to hamstring people, but by the same token, there needs to be something that makes sure that we have a citywide comment on intelligent issues.
And I do envision a dotted line as it relates to communications. An example would be this street sweeping change, the trash rollout. The Public Works Department, Jasmine, came into my office. What do you think we should do? What's a good strategy for getting the word out about this? We went through what she had in mind already, what we could add to it, and I looked at the materials that were being sent out, and we developed a plan together. So there's that dotted line. Obviously, the department directors would be oversight of the project itself, but the communications component would be dotted line to me.
And then once you strategize, I mean, so that framework that you just developed with Jasmine, that could be the baseline for how you develop future communication flows. Like, you should be able to build upon these processes so that you're not reinventing the wheel every time.
Right.
And now that the communication will be centralized, you should be able to template that. So when someone we do something else different, we can say, here's what we did last time. Do we need to make adjustments? So it's proactive, and then you can execute it very quickly.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, unlike Chris, I would like to see a Gantt chart. And the reason is, Chris, to your point, this is a tremendous amount of workload. And I think by laying out what needs to happen when, either tied to the editorial calendar or otherwise, you'll get a sense of the resources required. That'll help us as council in a budget session to figure out, what are we going to do? Are we going to add new headcount? We're going to pull more likely from different departments? What are we doing here to accomplish this? Second thing is, I love the metrics, but I'd prefer if there was a number there, like here's where we're at current state.
Baseline.
Here's what our media hits are. Here's the web, how many people are using our website currently, how many people are open in our constant contact, whatever. But I think before we go into this, we should do some work, if we can, to establish what our baseline metrics are, current state, so that we see if we even have a lift. We're going to allocate these resources. What impact are we making by doing so? And then the final thing is, one other thing I'd love to see, Barbara, because by the way, this is awesome, is service level standards. Several times up here we said, when that incident happened at Chevron, we could have done this differently. So what is that standard? Is the standard that in any incident at this level, we will respond within 3 minutes to the public? I'm just asking, what is the service level standard? Because right now I don't, is it 3 minutes?
No.
Okay.
No.
But we don't have a standard
You
now,
said
I don't think.
15,
We should have a
okay.
goal, I
You said
think,
less.
to strive for, that we can tell our constituents, here's our goal, this is what we look to do, and if we hit it, great, and if we don't, we learn from it and we
Yeah.
improve our process.
Definitely.
Also, when someone asks a question of us, because it happens a lot, I would like to be able to say we have a service standard of we'll respond to you within 24 hours. Anyone that emails us, phone, calls us, whatever, something along those lines. We have a standard in response time, because we're going to be improving our efficiency in terms of how we respond. And then resolving things. You're going to have this new website mechanism for reporting, like Beverly Hills already has, I think, right? Where Sam Lee
311,
came
yeah.
from. I knew that would get your attention, Ken. Whatever it is, but I'm just saying that we have some standards in place
Yep.
as goals. That's it. I think it's incredible. I'm so happy that we've made progress in this area.
Thank you.
It just really highlights the importance of it.
Indeed. Anything else, council? Going once, going twice? Okay.
right, thank
That
you.
was information only, right?
No, motion to approve.
Motion to approve. I will make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, new business. Item 3, consideration and possible action to approve the purchase of emergency supplies for city facilities and disaster go kits for city disaster service workers. Fiscal impact $65,660.06. And Randy Collins, Emergency Management Coordinator, is approaching the podium. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Mayor Boyles, Council. Thank you for having me today. It's been it's a great day for disaster preparedness, and with all the public safety recognition going on today, it's an honor to be in front of you, following those great things that are happening in the city. So this new business is about purchasing our disaster supplies that we're going to strategically locate around the city in different city facilities, and then also our disaster go kits for our disaster service workers, which includes all of our full-time workers that we may call into service away from their regular job and into a new disaster job during a bad day. And so with these disaster kits, I would just like the opportunity to say that there are different levels of kits, 50-person kits, 100-person kits that will, and then 5-person kits and 25-person kits that will strategically locate around. And these are the same exact supplies that we'd like the folks at home to have in their homes at the ready in case a disaster happens. It has food and water in the kits. It has a first aid kit. It will have lighting and electrical supplies, as well as sanitation and comfort supplies and search and rescue supplies. So these are the same types of things that we'd like people to be self-sufficient for when that bad earthquake happens, and it's going to take a long time to get emergency services organized and responding to every residential call for help or assistance. So we want to put those also strategically in our work areas. So if that disaster happens while we're at work, our workers have immediate access to those supplies, as well as if there's spontaneous citizens that come to those particular areas, we'll have extra supplies that we could help out when those people show up at our fire station or police station. And then in the Go Kits aren't necessarily an emergency supply kit for our disaster service worker as much as it's a Go Kit that gives them some of the basic tools to respond to their particular assigned job as a disaster service worker. Most of them will still have to personalize their kit to have some of the personal things that they need in there that will aid them. It'll have their particular job aids. If somebody's assigned to be a shelter manager, will have a job aid toward being a shelter manager and that sort of thing. But this is the basic components that they can start their kit from and keep their kit with them, so that when we do call them for disaster service worker assignments, that they can grab that kit and come and know that they're prepared. And that being said, I would just remind council that this was approved. This was already budgeted into our budget at the beginning of the year, and so we have went through the RFP process now and gotten the lowest bidder, which is SOS Products, Survival Products, and went through the evaluation process, the procurement process that is required, and I just seek your approval to go ahead with the purchase.
Thank you, Randy. I think Mayor Pro Tem has a question.
Yeah, so on the survival kits, how much are we paying per unit for each one of those? And the reason why I'm asking is, would it be something that we could offer since we're buying in bulk, that we could buy a supply that the residents could then buy from us so that we can give them affordability in their survival kits?
I'll have to look that up, ma'am. Just give me a second.
Because, I mean, I find with residents or anybody, you know, you can sit there and tell them, yeah, go buy them, and, you know, then they don't do it. But if we had them available for purchase from the city or donation from to the city, they may be more apt to implement into their lifestyle.
Right. So the 100-person kits are $2,000 each. The 50-person kits are $1,000 each. The 25-person kits are $690 each. The 25-person kits are $159 each, and
5-person.
Yeah, I'm looking for the 5-person kits. I'm sorry, somehow I got off there. The 100-person kits are $2,000. The 50-person kits are $1,000. The 25-person kits are $690, and the 5-person kits are $159. And now, but all the vendors that responded have obviously different pricing for different things, and there are certain kits that are designed more for families than they are for what we're looking at here, more in the office space.
Right.
Can we look at that in the future and make a bulk purchase and then have people buy from us? Sure, if that's the will of the
But as
council.
part of the contract, is there something we can negotiate where we say, okay, we're going to purchase all this from you. We would like you for you to offer a day where you're selling the kits to our residents at a discounted price?
I can certainly ask the vendor to do that, and maybe even come to our disaster preparedness day,
right,
kind of thing. And
I just think we got to do something to provide the service to our residents so they can buy it at a discounted price.
Yes, ma'am.
And since we're buying so much, we should use that as a negotiation tool.
Yes, ma'am.
Or maybe give them to the CERT trainees for their time and effort. I mean, that's a pretty involved process, isn't it, getting CERT trained? It's like 2 days or multiple days or something. Yep. Good idea, Carol. Okay, so we are...
Can I also just throw in that these things and items are identified, whether it's Disaster Council or we did the big exercise over at Boeing or likely what we'll see at the tabletops tomorrow. some of the things that we pop up are what are the equipment needs, and if we're going to have people sequestered at City Hall or walking around here and running an emergency service or emergency operations center for days on hand, what are the things that those individuals need to subsist? So these things are systematically, identified, and likely we will see, I would presume, on words in your mouth, we'll see budget requests in the future. Do we have enough generators? Do we have enough shovels? Do we have enough of these things? And we refine that based upon what we think the next disaster may be and its probabilities. So I think this is an important step forward. It's very difficult to have people do their job if they're looking over their shoulder, wondering, do I have enough batteries? Have I called home? Can I charge my phone? All of those sorts of things.
Thank you, Councilman Pimentel. All right, someone like to make a motion for approval?
Second.
Oh.
Okay, we got a motion and second by Mr. Pimentel. All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4 is being delayed until a future date.
June 4th.
June 4th. Thank you. Any polls on the consent agenda? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Report, City Manager.
Very productive agenda tonight, Mayor. I think we hit on multiple items of our strategic plan, from disaster preparedness to communications to public safety and infrastructure. So very happy with the outcome. I wish everybody a happy long holiday weekend.
Thank you, sir. City Attorney.
Nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
City Treasurer. Don't see her. Okay. Councilmember Pimentel.
Nothing.
Councilmember Nickel.
Just want to say thank you to the fire department for putting on a great Super CPR Saturday and the public open house. The little obstacle course for the kids was fantastic. The thing you do with the photographs, it's great. And something interesting came up in a conversation. One of the firefighters, and I apologize for not remembering which one, asked my 4-year-old daughter, if something was to happen to your mom and dad, do you know what to do? And she was like, no. And he said, you call 911. And she said, can I ask Suri to call 911? And he and I looked at each other like, I don't know. And so we did a little test there, like, hey, Suri, call for help. And then it does this 3, 2, 1 countdown to call 911. So it was just this very interesting moment of, wow, are we preparing our children and people to know what to do? We take things for granted, like everyone knows 911, like they must be teaching it in school. But with modern technology, just knowing how to use it and what to do, it was just very interesting. But I want to thank the fire department for putting on a wonderful day.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Brand.
Yeah, I attended and spoke a little bit at the Elder Fest on the 11th. That was a well-attended and very nice event, thanks to the Rec and Park Department. I think people enjoyed their day there. Looking forward to the mural dedication at the library in the Sue Carter room, Friends of the Library room, on May 29th at 3 p.m. And also wanted to comment that since we put some staffing or made a contract to beautify Main Street out here, around Grand and down Main Street, it's made a noticeable difference. It looks really good out there. People, I see them early in the morning. People are working on it diligently, and you can see the difference to when I think Carol brought this up 2.5 years ago or something. We did it, and it worked. It looks good. I hope we keep after it. I think it makes it much more pleasant. Looking forward to the uplights that are coming for the trees there. That's going to add to it. It's looking good. Good Memorial Day to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Pro Tem Perstick.
Yes, I also want to thank the fire department for putting on a wonderful service day. It was well attended, and I know the kids enjoyed it. And I want to let everyone know that we'll be attending the Medal of Valor on Thursday, recognizing our officers who have given service to the city.
All right, thank you. We have a tabletop exercise. We, a couple years ago, brought on Randy Collins. There's been a year and a half, I can't remember. Emergency Management Coordinator. The former mayor, Suzanne Fuentes, was very passionate about that topic, advocated for it for quite some time. Council agreed to do that. and we've asked that we improve our ability to be prepared for the inevitable. So tomorrow is the first of exercise with the tabletop, and then in the future we'll have additional exercises to test our ability as a city to react to catastrophe when it strikes. So more to come on that. We'll grade ourselves and we will report results in the future. And that's all I have for this evening, except for item 17, consideration and possible action for the council to direct staff to develop ideas for programs that honor and celebrate El Segundo's military veterans. Fiscal impact TBD. This was actually something that bubbled up on social media, and I talked to Torrance since then. I've spent time with a couple elected officials in Torrance. They do a great job of honoring their military. They actually had a military appreciation week in conjunction with public safety that culminated this weekend with a parade. They put up banners of the people that have served in armed forces all throughout their town, and I think they do a really nice job at doing this. So I thought I would mention it to the council to see if that's something that we wanted to explore in terms of directing staff to look into how we might be able to participate in a similar fashion in honoring our military veterans. So it's open for discussion.
I think it's a really good idea, especially since we have the Air Force Base here in town. And there's a lot of people at, some of the bigger companies like Northrop, Boeing, that are ex-military. So I think not just for our residents, but also for our business population, I think it's a really good idea that we do something. What that is, I'm not really sure at the moment.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any other thoughts?
Any thoughts?
We have the annual salute to the military, which was really good this last year at Raytheon, and I think this is a good idea to explore what else we can do in addition to that. Who's going to work on this? A committee? Is that what you're thinking, or a particular department?
I'm not sure. I was going to turn it over to Greg and his staff to figure out how they would approach this.
Do you think we could tie it to the 4th of July celebration?
Could
That's
be part
interesting.
of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we already have a lot of, the framework already established for the 4th of July. We already have the police, but there's a lot of structure already established. Maybe it's a component of the 4th of July celebration.
Mayor, members of council, our initial thought was to have our police chief lead a cross-department team within the city, potentially get some input from the service clubs in the city, and come back to council with some recommendations.
Great. Councilman Pimentel, did you have a thought?
I think Carol's really onto something. I mean, we tend to do discrete things with the Air Force Base that happen aboard the base or happen aboard here and doesn't necessarily draw in the broader public. I don't have a creative bone in my body, so I don't want to get in the way of the good idea ferry. I will say 4th of July is a tricky one because it tends to be a 4-day weekend for the troops, and they may not be here for that. So we would want somebody that allows them to see and be appreciated and feel and all those sorts of things.
Thank you. I just realized, is the military typically involved, the Air Force Base, with our parade, our holiday parade? I don't think they are they? Oh, they are? Oh, yeah, the colonel, yeah. Yeah, that might be tricky too, though, to your point about time off.
But you're talking military veterans, right? So you're talking like retired from the military. So that may play into it. I don't know. I saw this on the agenda, and I think of every time you go to like a sporting event, like Dodger Stadium, it's our veteran of the game, and the entire stadium stands up and big round of applause. And so to Carol's point, I mean, there is a stage of 4th of July that may not be the most captive audience of town. They're on the field with throwing water balloons and eating pie.
And watermelon.
You mean beating council members at eating pie?
Debatable.
Don't do that as an IML.
But I think that it's a perfect opportunity. It's a very patriotic day, and it's why not? Let's add it and see. And if it
could
blooms, then great. And I would say focus it on those like residents living in the community and honor them. And I'm sure there's a mechanism for us to figure out who they are. Or there's, probably plenty. Knocking on doors, I know there was a lot.
Councilman Brand, you had a thought?
Yeah, and then not sure what we do around Memorial Day. If we have any traditions there, or Veterans Day, like we do on the 4th of July. We sure have traditions there, but those are 2 days that make sense to wrap some of these ideas around.
Yeah, love it. So let's turn it over to staff to come up with, I think Chief Whalen's perfect You guys good with that?
Yeah.
So, okay, I'd like to move that we provide staff with direction to develop ideas for programs that honor and celebrate El Segundo's military veterans.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Great, thank you. Public communications, now is the time and place. Mr. Axelrod, it's good seeing you again. Please. Yeah. Because I saw you yesterday, remember, and said I haven't seen you in a while.
Good evening, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I will probably be as I usually am, unappreciated and unliked, but that's okay. Well, you can see by my shirt where I stand in terms of the military. I don't think we should be celebrating the military. I think we should be ashamed of the military. I was a veteran in the so-called Army of Occupation. I was in Germany for a year and a half. It was a terrible experience. I joined the unit that I was in at the time that the military had been. I can't think of the word. Blacks were no longer excluded from the units, and so I was in a unit that was integrated. Not that I did very much at all, except as little as possible. I'm going to return to a couple of things. I'd like to change the name, or at least consider the possibility of changing the name of El Segundo. I'm a little embarrassed at being in a city that's named after an oil refinery. I lived I lived a year up at Point Richmond before it became so big. It was my final year at the University of California. I had a small apartment up at Point Richmond. That's of no importance. I don't know what's important. I'd like to get rid of the Air Force Base. I don't want to be in a city with the Air Force Base. To hell with them. I mean that literally. To hell with the Air Force Base. I've been in military. I've served for 2 years in the Army, and I know what the military. I have a close feeling, a close opinion about what the military is for. Patriotism, I don't believe, is a virtue. It may be a necessity, but it's not a virtue. We have patriotism is something that we have that exists so that the leaders of the society, the leaders of the country, can ask people to kill other people and die, and also die for them. The hell with patriotism. It's not that's enough to be said. It's not in itself a virtue. It may be a necessity at times. Most of the times, it isn't a necessity. I recall protesting here in El Segundo. I protested the invasion of Iraq in when was that, 2003? And there were a lot of us up there on Wilshire Boulevard protesting. Didn't do any good, except I suppose it did us some good. We felt we were doing the right thing in protesting the invasion of Iraq in 2003. And we're still there. I was in a unit that operated a floating bridge over the Rhine River, and it was known by the entire area, that the military pool of from the ordinary mechanics to the other people in that area that took care of the equipment, the trucks and so forth. And most of the discussion that they held between themselves was how much they could steal from the Army and sell to the town of oh God, where did I stay most of that time? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I'd like to suggest a competition for a new emblem, or whatever you call it, logo. I heard the word logo several times today. Logo for the city of El Segundo. That logo that's up there is not attractive. It doesn't represent, as near as I can see, to me anyway, personally, it doesn't represent El Segundo. And it's not particularly attractive in itself. Now, it shows the prominent in that design is the refinery. I'd like to get rid of the refinery altogether. I'm an architect. Well, I was an architect. That building, that refinery there has its own wonderful beauty. It's mechanical, but it's a refinery. It's an organization that makes money on the use of fossil fuels. And how much time have we got here?
Couple seconds, Jack.
I've only got 4 seconds to 1 second. Listen, thank you very much for listening to me. I do really appreciate it, and I do appreciate the work that you all do, because I think you're very serious and concerned about the welfare of the city. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Axelrod. All right, we are going back into closed session at 7:27 p.m. Good night. Thank you.